Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Continuing with the Wicca and sort of trying to help people and guide people to what Wicca actually is, and what the Wiccan is different to what I practice, and everybody has a right to choose their own path. Please note this is just for guidance. I am no expert, it's just what I have learned, so there's probably a lot more information out there, so do research, read, look, it does not hurt. The more research you do, the more you will know about it. With that said, we're on to what constitutes a spell. So in Wicca, there's what we would know as 3 levels of the universe: the material, the consciousness, and the spiritual. Sort of they move between, and there are 3 components to a spell. Most obvious is the prayer. When people pray, is actually still sort of a spell, even though it's a prayer. Intention is very important. The means and the intention that is put into that spell, the candle, the flame, the water, whatever tool you're using, or just in general. You can actually obviously unite prayers with other components as well. There's nothing wrong with that. To be fair, there's no way to separate the craft of creating a spell from the idea of spirituality. It depends on your religion and the deities, the gods, God, and the spiritual beings you work with that will differ, but being spiritual and the spell crafting comes as one. It's not a separate thing. I guess you have to unlock your higher consciousness in order to work with magic and do spell casting. Even if you work up bit by bit, they just come together. And it doesn't matter what type of religion you're following, there's always that higher power. There's always these beings that affect the casting. There's always the magic that depends on the spiritual force put behind it. You know, you can manipulate objects, symbols, words, letters, gestures, but the central component is you, us as a person. That's a central component to a spell. And our wisdom, the wisdom we have within us, because we unite with spirit and with matter, and then the spell works. It's actually quite interesting when you learn, because what it does refer to is energy again, and we know energy is everywhere, and we know that it lives and it moves and it changes. So why can we not trust in ourselves to believe that we can manipulate it and change it? I'm pretty sure that most people, if they put their mind to it, would actually realise they could. So with all the energy and the patterns and the connections and the devotion and the intention, there is no reason for a spell not to work. It's important to remember that the universe is very much alive. It has a spiritual life force, and that nature has immense amounts of sacred power. Spirits inhabit every tree, every mountain, every river, cloud, stone, every star, and each has a unique power that can be cultivated and tapped into for spell purposes. To spend more time with nature away from people can help you tap into this. As long as you remember that there's no separation between dead matter, living spirit, it's just opposite elements. That's what it is. It's an unbroken connection of opposite elements, if you want to look at it as a bigger whole. You know, if there's no life, there's no spirit, therefore there can be no magic. The gods and goddesses are very real, with real power. They just reside in a different realm, different vibration, It depends. Some people believe different realms. Some people believe it's just a vibrational change. So everything's different. When you spellcast, it's important to remember that you invoke. You absolutely are invoking a deity, a spiritual being. You are intentionally connecting with a deity or a spiritual being. So it's really important to utilize everything. It's very important to learn and take time. Also, a lot do gift when they are spell casting. They will gift wine, grapes, foods in general. As long as they are quite expensive foods, they are the best to sort of offer. But there's many things, and it all does depend on that person. All you need to do is tap into that current, the current that flows like water. It accumulates and resonates in circles of stone, in mounds of earth, in trees, in the wind, in our blood, in our saliva. It's everywhere. All you have to do is tap into it. Obviously, it's not something that everyone will see. Some people can now actually see energy and the different energy and the different colours in which it brings. But if you can't see it, simply work by sensing it, raise it, channel it. The change will affect the area that you are in, for example. And you've always got to be careful, because if you send something out that's bad intentions for no reason, then that will come back to you. If you send something out that kills, it will come back to you. Just something to be aware of. There's various rules. Now in Wicca, I think it's harm none. That's not what I practice, so that does not apply to me. We did not have a read as such, even though I've studied many reads from various different witchery, I guess. But in the Wiccan read, and for Wicca, it is harm none, which means really do not do anything to harm anything. The life force, it can change throughout different spiritual religions. Different people call it different things, but no matter, it's still immortal, isn't it? It's still forever. Chinese is Qi, Hindu is Prana, the Dervishes is Baraka, Ancient Egypt's Ka, Roman Numon, North Seers Mergia. So there's different names. Medieval scholars, the quintessence or the fifth element is what they called it. And the magical philosophers through time have looked and changed and seen many different things regarding magic. And there's many different writings available if you want to research it on a scientific level rather than a spiritual level. Some people go scientific first and start with alchemy. Others just go straight into spirituality and things. Many people will say that generally energy will often appear as light, as white light. One of the few elements are usually involved. Reciting spells is essentially raising energy, raising vibrations, and directing energy. You are directing it through your hands. You can use a wand or, your athame or a theme, depends how you want to pronounce it. You can use those too, but essentially it's like Reiki. You are using the energy that is readily available in the universe, and you're raising vibrations and you're directing that energy for a purpose. You really need to inflame desire to be able to do your spell. Most spellcasters, you'll find that they are quite outgoing, they are quite eccentric, and they are confident. This is because they already know the power that's around them and within them. They've had that passion a long time and they've used it to deeply connect with that energy so that spells are successful. They know how to raise vibrations, lower vibrations. They can change things around them. You know, we're all interlinked. It's the ebb and it's the flow, and it comes and it goes. And the idea of casting a spell is that we have to have that desire, that intent, that real true passion and love from within us to put into the spell. And it's got to be on some sort of cosmic level. You know, you're sending a message to the whole universe when you're using this energy. So it has to be on this massive level too. So it can take some time to really get into that environment of being at peace and ready to do a spell. People often think that a spell is very simple and time-wise it's a few seconds. Yes, there are spells like that. They are quick and they are easy. But rituals and, you know, deep spells, they can take a month, they can take 6 months, they can take a week, 3 days, 7 days, 9 days. It all does vary. When it's a spell that you wish to have it continuous, then it will be repeated as well. It won't just be left and never done again. It will constantly have you going back to it to repeat the spell, to increase the energy once again, to keep it flowing. It's not about just doing one spell and then just like leaving it. Generally, it has to be repeated in order to keep the energy flowing through it. There is the idea that particular times are more powerful, like twilight, dusk, dawn, full moon, new moon, half moon, solstices, and equinoxes. And it's true that there seems to be, well, from what we know, there seems to be more energy and higher vibrations at these times that are given to us. But I think as long as the intention is there and you've inflamed your intention and your means within yourself, that it necessarily, the time does not matter. It's just that through history, it has been noted that those particular times, they do have more energy to use and spells can be more powerful. And if you're looking at working with energy, remember, anything that is earthly, that's nature, wisdom, knowledge, you will find the energy within nature to use it. Anything that is higher level spirituality, then you want to look at temples, courtyards, things like that. Anything that involves a prison cell or a building of similar would be lower energy vibrations, but you can still work with this. Just because it's a lower level energy does not mean you cannot work with it. You can. However, you do have to be very careful, of course. Another thing that's really important before you start doing anything is creating a sacred space, one that is important to you, for magical rituals, for casting spells. It's basically a working for containing your magic. You can create a space absolutely anywhere to honour, to celebrate, to cast spells. You can get rid of the negative energy before you begin, obviously by cleansing, ritual cleansing, and it can be done in many ways. There are many threads of energy in life, and we can interwork them within your life, within your spell casting area. A great way to communicate with the divine is obviously use the unseen energy, but prepare yourself before you create your space. You know, meditate, go within, take time out. Really think about what it is you want, what you want to achieve. Write it down if you must. Create a list. What spell am I doing? What time is it? How do I feel right now? What I need? What are my intentions? What will I gain from this? Should I repeat? And then when the spell is over and done with, you can write everything that you did and then go back and put how you feel now it's complete, who you worked with. So there's many things that you can do to heighten your senses to be able to connect to that energy. And when you create your own space, remember there's no rules to this. There's no rules at all. It can be out in nature. It can be one little corner that you put away and get out as and when needed. And it can be one big room. It doesn't matter. You can have a whole house if you so choose. what's important is experiment. Pay attention to the different things you have in your magical area and the different feelings it brings. Pay attention to the shift in energy and the shift in vibrations, and experiment. This is not anything to do with rules. There's nothing stating that you have to and you must at all. It's extremely different for everyone, and I think we all see differently. I think we all feel differently. So it's important to make it very personal to yourself. There's no point in looking at a generic altar and setting it up, because she won't really have a personal feeling to it. And the idea is we want to make it as personal as possible to create that energy and that intention. So remember, there's no rules at all. Whatever you see fit, whatever you think feels right, that's the most important thing, is what you think, what you feel, and how you want to go forward. It is important to set boundaries around your space, even if it's a room or in nature. It's just to signify the separation of everyday life, everyday consciousness, to say that this separates this from that, this is magic. And the boundary creates a physical barrier where you can feel safe and protected. Some people actually use chalk and things to do this, and obviously there is a casting of the circle, which we will get into, which is generally white, but other colours can be used. And the casting of that circle is done from our fingers, of course, taking the energy from around us. The sacred space, it's very important to remember that this is a beautiful space. It's one where magical things will happen. It's one where the supernormal beings and forces of spiritual energy will all come and aid you. It has meaning, and it's important that you see it as being special and meaningful. When you are casting your circle, you create it, as I said, from your fingers. It's to purify the space, it's to keep the space safe, it's to stop other beings from entering, but it's also to cut us off from the outside world. It's about going within oneself and being in between worlds. So it's no longer being in this world. We are putting ourselves in a state of consciousness where we are in between worlds. And the circle is quite important so that no beings we don't want around can get into that circle and cause problems. You'll call the quarters after you have done the circle. And you'll definitely have, it depends, everybody's different, but you'll call in your deity, whatever you want to work with. And that's where it changes, because everybody's so different. We all have different feelings. And over time, you will feel the changes. You will see changes. In everyday life, things will happen that you did not expect. But that circle is important. It's even important when working with the higher vibrational energies, just because with them vibrating much higher than we do, we don't want to cause any harm to ourselves until we can reach a very comfortable level and be comfortable with their vibrations. So the circle's there for many reasons, but it's just important to understand that when you enter that circle, you're letting go of the outside world. And it can take some time, I mean, you can walk around your space as well to purify it and things. There's many things that you can do. It just depends. Everybody's very different. But essentially, always put the circle up. Even, like I say, even in a room. And even if you have to do it at 4 corner points and do the circle like that, it is always best to do it. Because when we enter it, we want to feel different. We want to feel that energy shift, and that's the way to do it in Wicca. But I'm going to leave it here for now, but the next time I upload, I will absolutely go through casting the circle, cleansing the space, and calling on the quarters in the Wicca way, not the way that I do it, but this is a different way. But like I say, if you research, there's many ways out there and there are no rules. Remember, it's in you and you have the decision. Love and light and many blessings.